Hi there, everyone. Thank you very much for coming tonight, this afternoon, sorry. My name is Francesc. I'm originating from Barcelona, Spain, but for these last 4 years, I've been living in Stockholm, Sweden, working as a site reliability engineer for Spotify. And today I'm going to talk to you about, during these years, how Oncall changed on our company, the challenges we faced, how we overcome them, and how did we manage to scale it. So if we talk about scale, we should talk about some numbers. This is here you can see how things were 5 years ago. That was like 1 year before I joined. At the time, Spotify already had a microservices architecture, so you can see we had over 100 services, 10 million active users, 3 data centers, over 1,000 bare metal machines in production, and, but only a handful of site reliability engineers. So how do things look today? Let's fast forward. You can see we've grown number of services by over a factor of 10. The number of active users is actually pretty old. It's much higher than that now. We have one more data center. Also, we announced some months ago that we are migrating into the Google Cloud platform. We have over more than 10,000 servers in production right now, and that's only bare metal. That's not counting cloud instances. But we only doubled the number of SREs. So how is that possible? I mean, are those SREs superhumans or what? How have we scaled by a factor of 10, but we only grew the operations people by a factor of 2? So that's what I'm going to explain you today. But first I need to explain how are we organized at Spotify. So our organization is rather complicated. That picture is for real. That's taken from the documentation and stuff. If you want to know how our organization works at Spotify, it's not a secret. You can Google it and you will find plenty of documents explained in detail. But today I'm just going to summarize it and tell you the most important parts to understand the issue at hand. So first we have a squad, which is simply a group of engineers that they have in common a mission. And they have ownership on that mission. And what do I mean with that? Let's put an example. You can have a squad whose mission is to provide playlists at Spotify. So this team will most likely create a playlist backend, and they can decide how to implement that backend and whatnot. So they can take decisions on that mission. And then we have a tribe, which is a collection of related squads. For instance, you can have a backend tribe composed of different teams that create different backends. So you can have a client tribe, which will have a team per platform, like iOS or Android or Windows. So 5 years in the past, we used to have multiple development tribes and a single operations tribe, whose role was to perform all the operations tasks at Spotify. In this model, developments every time the development tribes wanted to create a new service and deploy it, every time they wanted to do a change in production, that change had to be reviewed by the operations people. May I remind you that already 5 years ago we had over 100 services. That means that there's going to be like dozens of changes every day. By the time I joined, there were like multiple dozens. It was really hard to keep up and reviewing those changes. And operations was basically kind of a bottleneck for deployment and release of new services. Also, operations had to own all the services in production. New services were popping up all the time. At this time, we had the concept of the system owner, which means that, let's say, operations engineer A was an expert on Cassandra, while operations engineer B is an expert on networks, and so forth. But there was nobody who knew everything at the same time. Everyone kind of had an idea of how things worked, but not everyone had the same level of expertise on everything because it was just too much. It was impossible. And finally, all the operations people had to be on call for all the services. And again, with being so many, you can guess that basically every night something will be breaking. So it was a very stressful on-call rotation. Sometimes it would even happen that you would be paged by a service you didn't know it existed because it just had been deployed and someone forgot to tell you. And you didn't even know, okay, how does this work? Or if I restart it, will it break other things? It was pretty bad. So let's recap the problems that I already mentioned with this model. Development were being slowed down by operations. The operations people just couldn't keep up with all the new knowledge that was being thrown at them all the time. And the single on-call was just a recipe for burnout. Also, I would like to note that the business had taken the decision that we need to be faster, that one of the key advantages of Spotify was to be really agile and outpace the competition. So it was not acceptable that operations people would be slowing down development any longer. So we came up with what we internally call operational responsibility, which, what does that mean? Well, it means that development teams will own their services, but not only will they create services and then hand it over to operations. No way, they will own the services and their entire life cycle. They will have to do set up monitoring and set up backups and all the OPSI stuff. They will do it themselves. And that also means that they have to take on call. A long time ago, Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great responsibility. But then it's also fair that if you have a lot of responsibility, you should also have an appropriate amount of power. And what I mean with that is, what's the point of telling people, you are going to be on call for your service, if you need to take drastic actions in the middle of the night to fix that service, you need to call someone else to do it for you. Let's say, oh, our service is under capacity, I'm going to provision, but only ops people can do that. So what operational responsibility implied is that we need to give full power to developers about their own services. So that meaning root as SSH as root into machines, provision new machines, deploy new versions or rollback, and all these kind of decisions that used to be only things that operations could do. And that means that, well, you have to trust them. It's as easy as that. We also, because we wanted to be so fast, we didn't really have the time to implement very thorough checks. So you just give them the keys of the kingdom, and yeah, you trust. It's as simple as that. You trust your colleagues that they're going to do their best. As simple as that. Then again, we do what we call trust but verify. So by default, you let them do whatever they need to get their job done, but you keep track of what's going on. So every change on production, it's you can basically track any change, and that's very useful in the case of incidents to see what happened and how to fix it and act accordingly. And I just would like to stress that all the things I mentioned so far are more related to culture than to picking a specific piece of technology or a tool. It's true that some tools lend themselves easier to this model, but this is more about how do we want to work together, how do we want to treat each other, and how do we want to hold accountable for. So going back to operational responsibility, yeah, monitoring, backups, all this stuff. Well, this used to be it still is a full-time job for a lot of people in this planet. So now I'm saying that developers have, in addition of designing and building services and new features, they also have to do that. How can they possibly take the load? You know, it's more work thrown at them. The answer is you should make all these tasks as easy as possible, and the easiest is when they are automatic. So, how do we implement this operational responsibility? We did a reorganization. We created a new tribe with cross-functional teams. They will have operations and developers in them. And just like the squads I mentioned originally, they will have a mission. And let's have some examples. So for instance, some team will create a provisioning. They will own provisioning, and therefore they will create a provisioning service. And they will offer these services to the rest of the company. So if some developer says, I need more machines, you don't need to be blocked by everyone. You just use that service and you get them yourself. You need monitoring. Here's a monitoring platform. You can do it yourself, and it's easy. I need backups. There you go. Here's a guide. Just follow it, and boom, magic. You get all your backups in place. And the other advantage of this is that then operations people only need to be on call for the services they own. No more being on call for everything and all that. Just the things you are in control, the things you created and that you offer to the rest. And little by little, operations was reviewing the state of development teams, and they were like handing over operational responsibility from operations onto the teams creating those services. This was not an easy process. Some developers maybe didn't like the idea of having to be on call. Operations had to do some internal consulting, giving advice, teaching good practices. But it worked. It was little by little, but we went through it. Now let me tell you an anecdote. Early in this process, as I said, the operations was reviewing all changes in production, and we have all of our configuration management in a single repo, and all changes in that repo had to be reviewed by operations. But as I said, that was slowing down the business. And one solution the team came up with is like, just open the gates. Let people do changes in production themselves, and that's it. I mean, they are smart people, we trust them. They will do the right thing if you give them the chance. As easy as that. The team was divided though. Not everyone was agree with this statement, and I myself was against it, actually. I actually vote against it because the reason why I was against it is because on my time at Spotify reviewing those changes, plenty of times I have seen some change that if we hadn't stopped it right there during review time, it would have caused a major outage. So I thought, I don't think the organization is ready for this. I don't think we should open the gates. I think this will cause major incidents and outages, and it's going to be a disaster, basically. But the business still decided to go on with it. They made a conscious decision, like, yeah, I mean, there's a trade-off between being faster and being more available. Now we need to be faster, so whatever. So I braced myself for impact. But nothing happened. And that's the surprising thing. So yeah, I mean, you gave all this power to all the software engineers, and they respond to it, and they did the right thing. And yeah, there was no major outage, no disaster, no nothing. So I was proven wrong, and I'm really happy at it. Since then, I get a lot more respect, both from my operations colleagues that did the right call, but also for the rest of the engineers in the company, that they were given this power into them, and they used it responsibly. So, continuing back with the story, yeah, more and more services were handed over to their creators so that they will take care of them, and eventually they will also take on call. So, one more thing, at this point, the company, everyone is doing operations tasks one way or another. So there's no more operations team anymore. There's a tribe that offers infrastructure to the rest of the company, but there is no operations team per se. So if we compare this situation with what we had at the beginning, all the problems are gone. Developers now the development teams now are completely independent. They are not blocked by operations anymore, so they can do everything by themselves, allowing them to be much faster. Operations doesn't have to take care of the entire company or everything. They just take care of the services their own, reducing their scope. And we managed to scale on call. Everyone takes care of their own service. It just works. So, how does on-call look today at Spotify? And how do incidents look? So let's have an example. We have a service here and some teams. Let's say the service catches fire, and okay, so because there's alarm in place, someone will be paged. Only the team owning the service will be paged. So they will wake up, look at it, what's going on, fix it. And then the day after or 2 days after, they will hold what we call a postmortem. A quick show of hands. How many people here know what a postmortem is? Okay, most people, that's fine. Do you know what a blameless postmortem is? Then I'll skip it then. More time for questions. Cool. So yeah, the team will hold a postmortem. They will come up with remediations. Those remediations will be prioritized and eventually implemented. Boom, now the service is more reliable. No more incidents like that, at least. But what happens with big incidents? Let's say some internal piece of infrastructure breaks, which lots of other services depend on. Suddenly, lots of services break at the same time. Lots of people get paged. Everyone starts working on their own little world, and I'm restoring this backup, and then wait, but I restored that backup. Or someone contacts the press team, like, what's going on, Spotify's not working, and the press team says, I don't know, can somebody tell me what's going on? Nobody knows, everyone's too busy fixing their own thing. Chaos everywhere. So here comes IMOC, which stands for Incident Manager on Call. This is an on-call rotation that evolved from the original operations on call. It's composed by the veteran SREs at Spotify. And basically, as they were handing over ownership of their services to others, at some point they own a service per se themselves. So their on-call schedule remained as a backup, and eventually they took on this role because we realized that in very big incidents, it's very useful to have someone to coordinate the whole thing. So the things IMOC does is, first of all, keep track of the things that are going on, make sure people don't duplicate tasks, handle communications with higher management, with press, whoever. They can also offer advice to the people that are fixing incidents, like, I don't know, because we have a long experience. We've been in the company for a while, so we know the people, we know most of the technology. And there's sometimes that there are tough calls to make, and they will ask for advice, like, what should I do? Should I restore this backup and wait 2 hours, or should I restore the service immediately? I recently heard that other companies have the same role, actually, but they call it incident commander, but it's the same idea. And another nice thing of IMOC is that basically you free engineers from the bother of like keeping track of things. I mean, they can concentrate on fixing their service because they are the owners, so they know it best, while IMOC will take care of these parts. Also, of course, IMOC should participate in the postmortem because they are the ones that get the higher vision of what transpired. I should also say that IMOC, I'm a member of the IMOC rotation, and it just has really low number of pages per week. You can go entire shifts without a single notification. But if there's a notification, it's big stuff. One more thing. IMOC is always paged manually. There's no automatic alerts linked to it. I mean, if someone decides that they need help, they will call in IMOC. There's some button they can press, and boom, and we'll be there. And 1 year ago, we introduced this change, what we call Follow the Sun. Since half the IMOC team is located in New York and the other half is in Stockholm, we decided to move from a 24/7, 1 week long on call into 1 week long, 12-hour on call shifts. So every day you will be working during wake hours, and by the end of the day, you will switch to the person at the other side of the planet. And it's been working really great. I absolutely recommend it. So if you can do it, seriously, try it. So far at Spotify, we're the only team doing this. There's nothing that prevents other teams from doing it. The only problem is finding someone on the other side of the Atlantic that wants to take the same on-call as you. And you take theirs, of course, too. So things are working really well right now with this model, and we are very happy with it. So what's next? We recently have been opening IMOC so that other engineers can join, not just operations people, especially software engineers or other people that have been in the company for a while. That has been working pretty well. So we are on call less often. We are even considering in the future that since IMOC, in the end, what it does is mostly managing incidents and whatnot, and not really logging into machines and fixing things, fixing problems, you don't really need that much of a technological background. So maybe we could just put managers to do it, and then engineers will be free of this on-call schedule. But we'll see. That's not set in stone or decided yet. We're still in the talks. So you will have to get some takeaways from this talk. I wish there were this, which is like empower your teams. Like let them take ownership of their services and let them manage them themselves, and they will respond to that. They will be able to be faster in addition. So it will make the business more efficient. That's a way to sell it. You can foster a culture of trust that's just invaluable. You want to go to a working environment when everyone trusts each other, everyone respects each other, not where there's so much competition and trying to be the best and all the others and all that. You want to try to be the smartest or anything like that. You just trust that everyone will do the right thing. Everyone trusts that you will do the right thing by default, and that's just so nice. It's invaluable. Now I couldn't be without it. And finally, I used to hear that tools shape culture just as culture shapes tools, but I don't agree. I think cultural decisions actually and company culture can have much bigger impact than any tool or technology you pick. So put some thinking into that. It's totally worth it. And that's all from me. I hope you learned something from our experience. I definitely learned a lot in these 4 years at Spotify, and this is for me very valuable learnings. So.
question for Francesc?
Yeah, you mentioned you worked within different time zones. How do you share information between those teams over time zones?
The question was, how do we share information between time zones? I guess you mean IMOC, when we switch the on-call.
Yeah. So you've got a team who's working on a specific feature and that impacts another feature. Yeah. How do you sort of like communicate that as an overall?
The time zone change is only that only IMOC does, so it's only for on-call. We don't have development teams, as far as you know, switching work through time zones.
Right. Okay.
But usually, I think only once or twice we had an incident that we had to hand over to the person at the other shift, and that's just you call them and you just talk with them. And, yeah.
But in terms of technical designs, would you use something like Confluence or information?
The question is, for technical designs, do we use Conference to share information?
Yes, so I worked in live development, and one of the problems I had was we had teams in sort of like San Diego, Japan and London, and because of the changing in time zones, you had that sort of like dropout in communication because you were working between email, and then when we switched over to live communication and Confluence, then everyone was looking on the same page all the time. I didn't know whether that would...
At Spotify, At Spotify, we're big enough that we have multiple documentation systems. I think the most successful is Google Docs, and that's what people use. They just share, and we use the comment functionality a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Next.
You mentioned the number of services grow from 100 to about 10 times. That also implies that as new services coming on, there are some old ones that they get legacy and no one's lost them. So the issues related to them, how do you manage them? Because knowledge also gets lost.
So the question was, how do we manage older hardware as we bring new hardware all the time?
And all those services, applications, things that people, they don't work on it for many months or years.
And older services. Well, I mean, we use the ownership. I mean, for Spotify, it's very important that every service has an owner. So there's always someone responsible. So nothing is abandoned. Every now and then, all services are cleaned up. Sometimes they just have to be in maintenance mode, and you keep them around because some old client relies on it. So I guess it depends, really. Older hardware, it gets replaced. There's the provisioning team that keeps track, and as soon as when they run out of warranty and they break, it's like just remove them, put a new one instead.
So from the presentation, what I understand is you basically moved into a DevOps kind of a culture. So, and there were changes onto the engineering. Was there any change in the senior management to reflect the changes on the engineering teams?
So the question is if there was any change in upper management to reflect the change that we went through in engineering. Not that I know of, actually. In fact, from my point of view, most of these decisions of adopt this model came from my immediate management, actually. That they took this deliberate decision, like, as I said, the trade-off between speed and availability and all this stuff. And
things like line management all changes, right?
no, not really. Not really.
Incidents can be, certainly large ones, can be quite stressful situations. So are there any practical tips when you're running as the incident management on call role to make that as painless as possible to all those that are involved and actually resolve the incident?
I'm not sure I've understood the question. You mean if IMOC also strives to make on-call as painless as possible for the rest of the teams?
Not on call, but during an incident, it can, obviously, when things are going wrong, it can be quite stressful for all involved. So are there any practical tips for how you organise or delegate or communicate with the people actually trying to resolve?
So tips for how to communicate with people and how to organize that IMOC uses. I don't know. We have a Slack channel called IMOC, and that's where people every time there's an issue. That's by default. That's where everyone in the company joins by default. So if you don't know what's going on, just be there lurking, and you will know everything that is broken and everything that is not in the company anytime. So it's a nice place to gather, and if there was to be any. It's actually pretty efficient. Every time there's a problem, all everyone involved will be there, and that just works.
So you mentioned the leap of faith.
Mhm.
You said nothing happened. So I'm not saying I don't believe you, but what was the change? Did developers just come and have a chat with you about how their code's going to affect the bare metal servers or something?
So regarding the leap of faith, what do I mean with that nothing changed? What I mean with nothing changed is that
Nothing happened.
Oh, nothing happened, sorry. What I mean is that, well, there was no difference in amount of incidents per week or downtime or anything. The way I interpret that is that maybe before developers were a bit more careless because like, someone else will review it. But now that the responsibility was on their own shoulders, they will be a lot more careful. But that's my way of reading it.
So you talked about well, in my opinion, a unicorn, the Blameless post-mortem. I've gone through 2 serious post-mortems of things, and they were supposed to be blameless, but you get people who get very argumentative. They, even though they're supposed to be just trying to work out what the damn problem was and let's stop it from ever happening again, human nature is to blame. How do you find, as a culture, I'm sure that the cultural thing, if people are, your teams are more integrated, so some people doing ops and some people doing dev, all in the same thing, that would help rather than having a team that's ops and a team that's dev and then they get together for the post-mortem. Have you found that it's made that process easier, I think is what I'm saying?
That was a very long question.
Yes, it was. I've worked out. Okay. So, have you found that moving to a more integrated team, where the devs are the ops, has smoothed the process of post-mortem from when you had very separate teams of ops and devs?
So the question is if moving to a more DevOps style culture has helped make postmortems better or actually blameless?
Yes.
I think they were already blameless before I joined, actually. I think it's something that Spotify takes its culture really, really seriously, and a cultural interview it's a very important part of the interview process. So, I don't know, when I joined, everyone already does it, and at some point you just go through. It would be weird if someone took this stance of being very argumentative or trying to blame people. Everyone will frown upon, like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, it would be super weird. How did it get there? I don't know, because I think that was already there before I joined. So I don't know its origins. How did they pull that off? Maybe we should bring next time someone that's even more senior and explain that.
With multiple service delivery teams, what it sounds like for your organisation, and a singular SRE team, how are you ensuring some level of operational consistency across those multiple delivery teams? So what's stopping a single team from designing something that is functional but may not meet the standards that you guys might specifically expect?
So having different teams building their own thing, and a single SRE team, how do we make sure that the new services have a minimum operational requirements? Well, we have some documentation and people sometimes follow it, sometimes they don't. At the end of the day, because they are going to be the ones on call, they're going to be the ones feeling the pain. So it's in their best interest to make the service as reliable as possible, which is another advantage of this model, by the way. For instance, in the past, it used to happen that operations was on call and there was a known issue, and you will go to the development team that created the service and tell them, please, can you fix this? Please, we're waking up every night, and because of this, and they would be like, we'll put it on the backlog and we're going to prioritize it. But as soon as they are the ones being woken up, then they have a really big incentive to go to their PO and say, we need to do this today. I don't want to be woken up again tomorrow. So that's actually, when we moved to this model, availability improved in the company as a whole. And that's pretty impressive.
So follow up on that. So I guess if that's the case, then if you've got something quite significant that is maybe an operational requirement like data backups, if that's not something that is considered or taken seriously, then the impact of that is financially quite significant. So there must be some level.
So what about backups will be then? Like if the development team doesn't, that's a question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how are they taking that something significant as that seriously?
Well, I guess because they will be the one to blame and they don't want to be blamed. Someone recently introduced a system that it will check for every, because we as I said, we try to automate things a lot. So the storage team has made a lot of work into managing databases and backups and make it as automatic as possible. So I recently heard that if your backups, if you were not performing backup restore tests every week, the CTO will receive an email about your database and your team. Like, this team has not. So I guess that works, or?
Yeah, just a quick one. You seem very organised with your on-call system and Rota, and then you said, but the dev team now, they're on-call. Are they as organised? How do they organise their on-call Rota with you guys? Do they all take it in turns? Do they organise it themselves? Or is it the same guy who's always on-call? Or any insights would be really interesting.
So the question is, how do teams set up their own, how they manage their own call? Well, they manage it themselves. There are some laws that you can go over, like this, you shouldn't be on call more than once a month, I think, according to Swedish law, or you should have a rest day after an entire week of on call and stuff like that. Sometimes if a team doesn't have enough people to be on call, sometimes two teams join together and they share the on call. So basically it's on a per team basis. They just figure out how to do it.
This is the last question.
Oh, okay.
Please go ahead, but
Yeah.
this is the last one.
Okay.
Are all your services equally important, or is there any? I can imagine maybe listening to music is more important than someone adding new music to Spotify. Do you have different tiers or anything like that?
So are our services at Spotify equally important? The answer is no, they are not. We have a concept of SLA, and basically teams ask their stakeholders, like, how important is this service? If the service can be down for a day, you probably don't need on-call. So there's no need to do on-call for the sake of doing it, or because it's good practice and everyone has to do it. It depends on the importance of the service and how necessary it is for its users. So that's all.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.